Starting off with Ariana's album Eternal Sunshine, I have the utmost respect for Ariana. I really love her music video for her current single We Can't Be Friends, Wait for Your Love, which shocked me. I know a lot of other people felt the same too, which is why you can see that the streams are increasing day by day, which doesn't usually happen. Usually, when you have a really big artist like Ari, all her fans will rush out and listen to it on the first day. But what we've actually seen an increase on the fourth day, which is insane. And I'm really excited for her because it looks like this single will go number one in the US and the album will smash at number one as well. I remember when Ari came out with the song The Way, featuring her now deceased ex, Mac Miller, and I was just shocked by those vocals. I didn't know her as Kat from Victoria Justice. Like, that was just after my time of watching Nickelodeon. I was obsessed with Nickelodeon as a kid, but I was like, wow, who is this girl? She's incredible. And then I was really obsessed with the second album, My Everything, in 2014. That was a really huge album that had all the hits. I remember specifically studying for my CA exam, Chartered Accountant exam, and just listening to that album to relax me. It wasn't just all the hits, so we know the hits: Break Free, Problem with Iggy Azalea, One Last Time, Love Me Harder, but I was also a fan of the album tracks as well. So we had Just a Little Bit of Your Heart, Break Your Heart Right Back, and Why Try. I think when you get into an artist and you listen to their album tracks, it's a special bond you have when you love the album as a whole, and that's something that's consistently happened for me with Ari's albums ever since. This followed on with her 2016 album Dangerous Woman, which I know a lot of people love as well. In particular, the album track Greedy is pretty much become a single because of how much the fans love it as well. As well as the promo single, so not an official single, called Let Me Love You with Lil Wayne, and a track that I mentioned last week on my Pride playlist, which is Be Alright. Just love that song so much. Her next album, 2018's Sweetener, which a lot of other people didn't like, but was personally a favourite of mine. Obviously, I loved all the singles, including The Light Is Coming with Nicki Minaj, which a lot of other people wouldn't agree. They would more prefer the other single at the same time called Bed, which wasn't on the album. But the album tracks Every Time, Successful, and Sweetener, songs I still love to this day. But we really can't compare any of these albums to Thank You Next, which I think is by far her best album and was robbed of a Grammy, as Billie Eilish said. From start to finish, there are no skips. Needy is a standout for me, as well as the Holy Trinity, which is 3 tracks in a row, which is Bloodline, Fake Smile, and Bad Idea. If you've not listened to the album Thank You Next, please go out and listen to it now. And even though I just mentioned that I love those last 4 albums, I wasn't really a fan of 2020's Positions. It's not a bad album, I just never really got into it, which is crazy. But the same happened with Taylor Swift. Like, I was always a really big fan of Taylor Swift and all her albums, and when Folklore came out in 2020 and then Evermore later that year, I didn't get into it at that time. But, you know, it's the great thing about art is you can get into it at any time, and Folklore and Evermore, even though I still haven't got to them as albums as a whole, there's some really great tracks on it, which actually became my faves in the Eras tour. On the Positions album, there was the songs POV, which is gorgeous, Motive with Doja Cat, which is really fun, and also 3435, which was the single. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend checking out her Vivo live sessions of the album, because that really sold it, but I just never ever got into it. But who knows? I could always get into it later on. And I really hope she does another Vivo live sessions for this album, Eternal Sunshine. The album title, Eternal Sunshine, comes from one of her biggest inspirations and idols, which is Jim Carrey, for his 2004 sci-fi film. And the plot is 2 individuals who undergo a procedure to erase each other from their memories following the dissolution of their relationship. Something she recreated in the film clip for her latest single, We Can't Be Friends, Wait for Your Love. And I think if you haven't listened to the album yet, don't do that yet. Watch the music video first and then listen to the album. It just puts it all in perspective. A lot of people don't realize that Ariana got divorced recently. So she got married in 2021 to Dalton Gomez. I think a lot of people just want to focus on the controversy of Ari, and I can't really comment on it. No one can definitely say that she broke up the marriage of who she's supposedly dating now, Ethan Slade from The Wicked musical. Obviously, it would be sad if she did break up a marriage and a family. But, you know, she wouldn't be the first and she won't be the last person to do it either. So I'm not going to defend her. I'm just going to say, give the same hate to everyone else, because I'm sure it happens a lot of other times with a lot of other people too. I really love how she launched the album with the SCN to just address all of that and go, yes, and which is very similar to how she did Thank You Next, because she knows that everyone talks about it and they always will. As long as she's in on the joke, it doesn't really matter. She can just brush it off. And once again, I feel like there's no skips on this album, which is a really hard thing to do. My faves at this moment, today, because it will probably change tomorrow, is True Story, The Boy Is Mine, and Bye. But yeah, it hasn't even been a full week yet, so that could change today even. So I'm really loving all the tracks. I can go on and on about it, which I might do if anyone wants me to do that. But at this stage, this is where I'm going to leave it. Next up is Ricky Lee's album On My Own.